Well, hi everybody. Ooh, no, that's too loud. Okay, I'm gonna get louder than that. So, all right, that's better. There we go. So, how are you all doing today? It's you got me almost 2 weeks in a row. Sorry about that. No, so technically last week we did our music service, and that was awesome. Thanks to all of our musicians who always join in and do the singing, and hopefully we can get more people up there next time around. You have like a quarter of a year before it happens, so don't worry. You got time. You got time to think about it. But last week we talked about refresh, and I had so much to say about that topic, um, and I did not want to do 2 weeks in a row. So I was like, no, no mini sermon, no mini sermon series, none of that stuff. It's just something brand new. So I was like, what can we talk about? And I figured, well, I don't know. Let's figure it out together. So I just randomly I was chatting with Carolyn like I usually do about stuff, and I think we just kind of came up with. I was saying about finding out what I wanted to do, and I was like, I just need to figure out how I'm going to get there. And I was like, oh, that'll work well. We'll talk about finding our path, right? Why not? So that was kind of how we got to where I was like, let's finding our path. Yeah, what does that mean? So I always do that. That's how I do our music services. That's how I approach things. I come up with a big topic, and then I'm like, all right, what is that though? How does that work? So what does that look like? What are goals? Oh, goals are good. Yeah, we'll work goals in, and then we'll figure out where we go from there, right? We'll figure out where we go from there, because that's how do you, it's a path. We're taking a journey, and hopefully we're going to take one journey together, and it will make sense the whole way through. Hopefully we will walk on one path through this little finding our path. But to find out what I wanted to talk about, do the same thing we always do. We have the world of knowledge at our fingertips right now. So how many of us actually just immediately have a question and we just go, oh, I'm just going to Google that. Let's just Google it. So I was like, all right, I have finding my path. That's a topic. That's my talk. So what I'll do is I'll just Google it. What's the easiest thing to do? Finding your path in Unity, right? Super easy. No, not at all. Google, if you aren't familiar with Google, does this thing where it gives you searches based on what it thinks that you might actually want, as opposed to the actual answer of a question. So I write a lot of code for a lot of things, websites. I've done like 3D graphics before. So I get the first thing, oh yeah, finding your path in Unity, a guide to making AI pathfind its way through 3D environments. I'm like, oh, that is not gonna help me. That is not gonna help me. And then I'm a nerd, so I clicked on that article because I was like, what? Yeah, but I gotta know what that's about. Like, what are we doing with AI in Unity now? And and I thought, well, this actually is really helpful, because I was looking at it, and I'm not sure if you're familiar. Real quick crash course on how AI learning and AI pathfinding works. You basically give it a set of parameters, and imagine you have like a little racetrack and a dot, and it has to negotiate that racetrack. It's going to do the same thing over and over and over again until it figures out how to make it to the track. You give it the parameter is cross the finish line, and the finish line's there, and there's a whole bunch of walls in its way. So it starts off, and it just immediately goes straight into the wall. Just right out of the gate, it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know how to go. It doesn't know how to stop. Sometimes they just fidget around in circles for a little while, and then they crash. And so then what happens is you reload the next time, and it tries it again, and it maybe does better, but it learned from the last time. And it's basically a generative layered learning. Do that a billion times, literally like a billion times, and it eventually figures out, oh, I need to go faster here, I need to go slower here, I gotta go left here, I gotta go right here, and then eventually you cross the goal. And you do that over and over and over again, and it learns how to get to the goal. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. That's kind of how we learn. Like when you were learning how to walk when you were a kid, you stumbled and tripped and fell, and you're like, oh wait, if I this one goes first, and then this one, and then, oh no, there's a step or these things in my way, climbing up onto a couch, For those of you who are parents out there, I don't know what this is like, but I'm certain that it is a faster learning curve for humans when when those little people learn how to move. It's a faster learning curve than AI, I bet. Because I'm pretty sure once they negotiate this, they just go. So that's kind of how we learn. We learn a lot like a generative model, but we're faster at it, we're better at it, because we can see a little further. We have more parameters in our lives. Our brains are a little bit more full. So I figured, okay, all right, AI, goals, how does this make any sense? I don't know what to do here. So that's how AI learns. And that's how we kind of find our paths in a way, shape, or form. So what do we do? How do we come up with a path? Well, first off, you got to have a goal. You got to have some sort of thing. Crossing the finish line is important. If you don't know what your goal is going to be, how are we going to get there? It just doesn't make sense. So we make goals every single day. We make tiny ones. I got to get up. I got to brush my teeth. I got to make my bed. I got to drive to church. I got to get here in time. I got to practice. I got to plug in the guitars. We do this constantly. Every little bit of time is a goal. Tiny, tiny little measurements. Sometimes we make big goals. This year, we're going to pay off our mortgage. That's a big goal. Wow. Sometimes we make really long-term goals. I am going to learn Spanish. Maybe that's going to be a year. Maybe that's going to be 2 years. Maybe that's going to be a month. I don't know. But sometimes we have nebulous goals. Sometimes we have very strict goals. Sometimes we have this is a goal that's a moving goal. Like it doesn't move necessarily, but I learn a little more, and then I learn a little more, and then I learn a little more. But we make these goals all of the time. And what we do with these goals is a lot of times on our smaller decisions, we learn the way to that goal. This is exactly what we're doing. Here's the goal. This is the plan. The goal is it, right? All we care about is the goal. Deepak Chopra, of course, we know talked about detachment from the goal and the idea that, hey, you have this goal, but don't be all attached to what happens if you don't make that goal. Well, thanks, but I want to learn Spanish. I need to get there. But how do I not get attached if I don't learn Spanish? Do I not know that I never learned Spanish? That goal is a nebulous goal. We don't know if we've reached that goal until we actually reach that goal. So we make all kinds of goals. So the easiest goals are, I need to get somewhere, right? We're going to keep talking about that AI and that path. Driving that little rate. Imagine a racetrack in your brain. We have a racetrack. We have directions. So when we make that plan, we make that goal, we make a plan to reach that goal. We come up with our path to reach that goal. Sometimes it's fast. Sometimes it's not fast. I'm getting to church. I'm getting here in the mornings to Unity from my apartment. I know that I turn right onto Kennedy, I turn left onto Roosevelt, and then I take a left on White Street and another right. It's really easy. I love it down here. There are very few ways to go wrong on getting anywhere. That's my memorized path. That is the path that I take every single week. Is it the fastest way? Sometimes. Sometimes it's not. Is it the most obvious way? For me, maybe. But other times, it's not. And the importance here is we keep taking that same path, but we don't learn from that. We didn't, learn. I don't know. If I take the same path over and over again, I don't know where the church is. I don't know where Unity is. If I just know how to go left, right, left, right, left. I know that that is how I get there, but I don't actually know in relation to the world where anything else is. And I don't know, but a few weeks ago it rained, and you couldn't get half of the places on the island. And if you have a memorized path, well, now all of a sudden, we have a problem. So I didn't learn my goal, get to Unity, might not be as easy anymore. Maybe I have a different way. I have to take a different way, White Street was entirely flooded. White Street was flooded. What else was flooded? Everything was flooded. Didn't matter. I couldn't get there the way that I always go, by my left turn, my right turn, my left turn, whatever it was. So I had to come up with something else. I had to change my path. I had to change what I was doing. Was that easy? Did I learn a new way? I did. Am I going to go that way ever again? Am I going to go out to Flagler and then come back up? No, I'm probably not. But you know what was cool is I learned that, oh, wow, that is a good way to get there. And if there's something else going on, I can go around. If there's a parade, I don't have to go the normal way. Obviously, there are only 5 roads on this whole island, so it's really easy to get anywhere. I'm using this as an easy example. But we learn our one way of doing things. We learn that one very specific direction. We learn that one way, and we love that way, man. We love that path that we figured out. But did we actually learn the path? What are we learning from that path? The path can be kind of the goal. As long as we reach our goal, as long as I get here, I can try something new. David Roth talks about how, practice makes perfect. It doesn't matter what we do, because there's always going to be another chance. In a lot of cases, there's life-threatening situations. We have to talk about that. But a lot of times, there's other ways around, and it's important to try all of those other ways. So if our path has to change, how do we get there now? Well, we have to learn that new way, and that's okay. It's important to do that. When I was in college, a professor of mine said, it was first psychology, Psych 101, and she talked about how our brain works and how our brain rewires itself, the pathways of our brain, which is all connected with neurons. And the science is that our brain is interconnected with a ton of neurons, and as we do things the same way every single week, it reinforces the pathway that all of the signals in our brain take. If I play guitar, I know this is my G chord. This is my C chord. Let's do a different one. This is my C chord. This is my C chord. Easy peasy. This is how I play it. Every single time, just boop. It's just in my brain. I have reinforced those pathways. My psychology professor said, if you do something differently, even if it's the same outcome, your brain is going to be forced to rewire itself. It's going to have to say, oh, no, well, we got to do something different here. And you will make literally new connections. All of your neurons will reconnect themselves in a brand new path to also get to the same outcome. So on my paper, I see a C, and I'm like, oh, okay, I think this. But I can also play it in like 3 other ways. So sometimes I do that. And when you do that, what happens is, not only does your brain reconnect and you're like, yeah, that's also the same thing, but you create new pathways in your brain to strengthen other things. Change is important. Do things differently. It strengthens your brain. So the path to a goal, sorry, I got a little off on psychology there. I like psychology. Your brain, rewiring, taking new paths. Take new paths. Every time you take a new path, your brain rewires. You learn something new. You've accomplished your goal. But the important thing is you've learned something new on the way to your goal. Learning that new thing now is going to help you learn a new thing the next time. AI. I ran into the wall. Darn it. Let's try it again. Oh, I ran into the wall again. Okay. Maybe that didn't work. 3rd time. Well, I ran into a different wall. But you know what? I know that other wall is there, so I'm not going to run into that again. Every time we learn something new, it's a stepping stone up to that next step, up to that next level. We keep learning. We keep building on all of our past experiences. We keep getting better and better and better. So we don't look at the goal. The goal, get past the finish line. We know we have to get past the finish line. We know we have to, on Sunday morning, I have to get to Unity. How am I going to get here? Maybe I take the same way I always take. Maybe I go down Flagler. What am I going to see while I'm there? I'm going to see new people. I'm going to see new things. Maybe I'm going to stop at the auto parts store and get something for my scooter. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of new things that the world is open to me because I didn't take the same path again. because I learned and I changed and I refreshed. I refreshed the way I look at things. So we don't want to be afraid of different paths. Just because we do it the same way over and over and over again doesn't mean we should keep doing it the same way over and over again. I apply that to life in terms of when you look at someone's system to do something. You look at that system and you say, wow, that really worked for them. And then you start it out and you're like, that's not working for me. But then you get discouraged. You're like, oh, but they did it. That was their path. That's how it should work, right? Might not. Don't be afraid to take their path, run into a wall, start it over, change something, and try again. Because that's how you won't just get to your goal. Because you're going to get to your goal. We're going to make those goals. Going to cross the finish line. It's going to happen. But we're going to learn so much more along the way by not being afraid of running into that wall, starting over, running into a different wall, and starting over, and keep going. So try new things. Try normal things new. Sit in a different seat sometimes. Move. Okay, that got a few people, I'm sorry. Sit in a different seat sometimes. Take a different path to the store. Take a different path here. Walk, don't bike. Bike, don't drive. Just do something that you always do in a different way. Your brain, will rewire, and it'll give you a whole bunch of new connections that you didn't know you had, even though you don't know it's doing that, because that's the awesomeness of the human brain. And, you'll feel better about it. Seeing the world in a different perspective isn't always changing your mind, always reinventing yourself. I know, I did it to you guys. It's 2 weeks in a row. It's just refreshing. You're just seeing the world in a different way. So look at all the ways that you can do the things and ask yourself, what can you do differently? What can you do differently? How can you do that thing that you always do differently? Because it's not going to be scary the 20th time. It's not going to be scary the 30th time. It's probably not going to be scary the second time because you'll have done it. So that's all I have to say for you guys. Just do things differently. Try things new. Your path, it's not about the goal. It's about taking that road. It's about finding that path and wandering down it in a different way than you're used to. So, Ralph, I'll leave you with the most generic quote. It's not a generic quote, sorry. I'm going to give you a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote first. And Emerson was famous for doing things off the beaten path. He was famous for doing things differently. And he said, of course, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And it's not about the goal, it's about the friends we've made along the way. That is my cheesy quote to end. So thank you guys. Try something new. And no, don't clap. Try something new. That's all I'm saying.